All right, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you present. I humbly request everybody first to please kindly mute yourself. My name is Kiran on behalf of DITF. I warmly welcome you for this wonderful webinar coming up right now. और आप सभी को मैं हार्दिक 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 शुभकामनाएं देता हूं कि आप सब लोगों ने अपना कीमती समय निकाल कर इस वेबिनार को अटेंड करने के लिए अपना टाइम निकाला है। और सबसे पहले वॉक टू सक्सेस वेबिनार, A key to understanding by the successful entrepreneurs themselves। जी हाँ दोस्तों, कि हम लोग जो आज ये वेबिनार करने जा रहे हैं वो उन लोगों की तरफ से है जो लोग ऑलरेडी बहुत ही सेल्फ मेड सक्सेसफुल एंटरप्रेन्योर्स हैं। तो हम उन्हीं लोगों को आज इस पैनल पे रखा है और जो आपको बहुत ही अपने एक्सपीरियंस से बताएंगे कि भाई आप अपने लाइफ में सक्सेसफुल कैसे हो सकते हैं। सो आई होप एवरीबडी इज रेडी, बट बिफोर दैट हमने एक छोटा सा प्रेजेंटेशन तैयार किया है तो मैं आप लोगों को दिखाना चाहता हूँ। सो आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट नेहल, कैन यू प्लीज शेयर द प्रेजेंटेशन प्लीज। दधीच इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड फाउंडेशन, इसकी शुरुआत जस्ट 2 से 2.5 महीनों पहले हुई है। हमारे मिशंस और विजन्स के बारे में बताना चाहूँगा। हम चाहते हैं कि हमारा प्रमोशन एंड डेवलपमेंट और जो नॉलेज है, द स्किल्स ऑफ द ग्लोबल कम्युनिटी थ्रू कॉपरेशन, कोलैबोरेशन एंड एक्सचेंज, रिसर्च, इंफॉर्मेशन एंड आइडियाज व्हाइल मेंटेनिंग एथिकल प्रैक्टिसेस एंड इंक्लूड प्रोवाइडिंग प्रोफेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स फॉर अचीविंग सोशल इकोनॉमिक पावरमेंट, वैल्यू बेस्ड एजुकेशन, कम्युनिटी वेलफेयर एंड प्रैक्टिस ऑफ कंपैशन, spread of global mutual relations, spiritual upliftment of fellow beings। मीन्स ये जो मैं इस सबका एक जिस निकालूं तो मैं कहूँगा कि हमारा मिशन है कि हमारी कम्युनिटी में जितने भी लोग इस किसी भी दुनिया के कोने में मौजूद हैं, हम सब एक दूसरे को इकट्ठा होकर एक दूसरे के साथ नॉलेज शेयर करें और एक दूसरे की हेल्प कर पाएं बाय वे ऑफ प्रोफेशनलिज्म और बाय वे ऑफ सोशलिज्म। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड। Our vision to promote education and address the education needs of the children and senior citizens, and to provide monetary and non-monetary assistance in the form of grant or any other affordable means, to provide academic education, training and job-oriented vocational training to specific age groups। हमारा विजन है कि बेसिकली हमारे समाज के जितने भी लोग हैं, जो लोग को एजुकेशन मिला तो है मगर उनको थोड़ा एप्लीकेशन नहीं पता, तो हमारे जो समाज के जितने भी लोग हैं जो अप्लाइड नॉलेज अपना गेन कर सकते हैं और जितने भी लोग हैं जो उनसे नॉलेज गेन करके शेयर कर सके, अपनी लाइफ में अपने प्रोफेशन में उतार सके, इसलिए हम लोग ये चाहते हैं कि भाई हमारा विजन हो कि हमारे जितने भी लोग हैं बेनिफिट कर सके वाया टर्म्स ऑफ मॉनिटरी, एजुकेशन और नॉलेज। अब मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगा कि हमारे कुछ ग्लिम्सेस जो हमने पिछले इवेंट किए थे। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड। हमारा जो फर्स्ट वेबिनार था, वेबिनार ऑन MSMEs, माइक्रो स्मॉल एंड मीडियम एंटरप्राइजेस, जहाँ पे हमारे जो दिग्गज थे, उदय पांसे जी थे, चंद्रशेखर जी थे, हर्षित दधीच जी थे और हमारे आज के जो होस्ट हैं पीयूष दधीच जी भी थे। ये सब अपने आप में एक सेल्फ मेड प्रोक्लेम नॉलेजेबल पर्सन है जिनको हम कुछ भी सवाल पूछेंगे उनकी फील्ड के हिसाब से उनके आंसर्स उनके मुंह ज़बानी होते हैं। ये बहुत ही हमारा सक्सेसफुल वेब सेमिनार था और जिसकी वजह से हमने उसको बहुत लोगों को बेनिफिट भी किया है इन टर्म्स ऑफ बिजनेसेस, इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रोफेशनल अप्रोच। ये कुछ फोटोग्राफ्स है जो आप देख पा रहे होंगे जिन्होंने अटेंड किया था। हमारा जो सेकेंड वेबिनार था, व्हाट गोज इनटू द माइंड ऑफ अचीवर्स, हमारे समाज के बहुत सारे बच्चे ऐसे भी हैं जो इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे एक्लेम्ड हैं और ऐसे भी हैं जो इंडिया और महाराष्ट्र स्टेट और मुंबई सिटी जैसे एरिया में भी बहुत ही नामचीन है अपने अपने क्षेत्र में, जैसे कि आस्था शर्मा, एंजल दधीच, आर्या सोपा, खुशी शर्मा, नेहल मिश्रा एंड रितिका दधीच, जहाँ पे ये सब एक अपने अपने, कोई कॉलेज का टॉपर है, किसी को नासा से इनविटेशन मिला है वगैरह वगैरह, कोई सीए का टॉपर है और कोई सीए की प्रैक्टिस इतनी कम उम्र से इतने बड़े लेवल पे कर रहा है कि भाई आप वो जो एक्सपीरियंस है जो 30-40 ईयर्स के बाद मिलता है वो आज वो 20-25 ईयर्स के बीच में कर रहे हैं। ये उसका एक ग्लिम्सेस था जो हमने 1-to-1 शेयर किया था, उन लोगों के साथ बातचीत करी थी। हमारी मॉडरेटर भारती दधीच जी ने वो किया था। हमारा जो तीसरा सेमिनार तो हमारी लीडरशिप जिसके फीमेल लेडीज चैप्टर की जो हमारी हेड है अदिति जी, जिन्होंने ये सिंजारा मीट लेडीज ग्रुप के लिए करवाई थी, जहाँ पे बहुत सारे गाने, नाच गाना और हमारे लेडीज लोगों ने सारे गाने भी गाए थे, हमारे भजन भी हुए थे। हमारी साध्वी जी भी हमारे साथ ज्वाइन हुई थी जिन्होंने अपना भाषण दिया था। बहुत ही अच्छा एक सिंजारा मीट हुआ था, 1-1.5 घंटे का, बहुत ही खूबसूरत माहौल बना था और सब लोगों ने खूब एंजॉय किया। उसकी एक छोटी सी झलक है। और आज हमारा ये और चौथा सेमिनार जो हम एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं कि भाई हम तीनों से बहुत ही खूबसूरत बने और बहुत ही नॉलेजेबल बने, ताकि आप सब लोगों को ये बहुत मेमोरी हो जाए कि भाई हाँ, ऐसा वेबिनार हमने कभी पहले अटेंड नहीं किया। वॉक टुवर्ड सक्सेस। अब मैं सिर्फ 2.5 महीनों के अंदर हमारे DITF के कुछ और चैप्टर्स भी बने हैं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल कि हमारे विक्रम दधीच जी, चैप्टर हेड मुंबई एंड थाने डिस्ट्रिक्ट, इनके बारे में कुछ बताऊं। ही इज अ प्रैक्टिसिंग चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट बेस्ड इन मुंबई, also former related member of WICASA Western India Chartered Accountant Student Association for 2009 and 10. Currently serving Dadhich community as secretary of Yuva Wing of Dadhich Samaj, Mumbai, and founder member of Dadhich Premier League, जो बहुत ही ज़्यादा successful हुई थी last year season 1, which is one of the historical and landmark event of Dadhich Samaj Mumbai. ये हमारे मुंबई चैप्टर के हेड हैं और मुंबई चैप्टर के रिलेटेड कुछ भी आपको इन्फॉर्मेशन चाहिए तो आप इनसे कनेक्ट कर सकते हैं. खुशी असोपा, शी इज द चैप्टर हेड ऑफ रायगढ़ डिस्ट्रिक्ट. उनके बारे में कुछ बताऊं तो शी इज कॉस्ट मैनेजमेंट अकाउंटेंट एंड कंप्लीटेड ग्रेजुएशन इन द फील्ड ऑफ बैचलर्स ऑफ अकाउंटिंग एंड फाइनेंस. She has received certificate for academic excellence in 17-18. She has also secured first position in online group discussion, first position in interdepartmental debate competition, third position in PPT making, and she has taken part in many webinars related to radio jockey. ये पिछले लॉकडाउन में उन्होंने अपने आप को बहुत ही ज़्यादा ग्रूम करके एक बहुत ही कॉम्पिटेंट अपने आप को बनाया है. And she is leading the chapter of Raigad district. गीतांजलि दधीच, अभी इनके बारे में थोड़ी बहुत डिटेल बताऊं तो शी इज प्रैक्टिसिंग एक्सपीरियंस है जो उनका प्रोवाइडिंग इंडस्ट्री वाइज कंसल्टिंग है, जो जीएसटी, ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग, फोरकास्टिंग, कॉस्ट रेवेन्यू, प्रेजेंटेशन होता है जो जीएसटी के बारे में होता है, वो टेक्सटाइल में, मर्चेंट एसोसिएशन, ट्रांसपोर्ट यूनियन एक्सपोर्ट्स, एड्रेसिंग टू न्यू क्वालिफाइड सीएमए मेंबर्स इन सीएमए चैप्टर, लीगल केसेस होते हैं जीएसटी के, एडवाइस देना है जो मतलब पीएफ, ईएसआई, बीओसीडब्ल्यू, लेबर लॉ, फैक्ट्री एक्सेट्रा. ये उनका प्रैक्टिसिंग एक्सपीरियंस है. और जो कॉर्पोरेट एक्सपीरियंस है जिसे उन्होंने प्रिपेयरिंग बजट, प्रोजेक्ट, कॉस्ट वैल्यू, इंजीनियरिंग, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन एंड इंटरनल कंट्रोल सिस्टम्स. तो ये सारी उनकी प्रैक्टिसिंग एक्सपीरियंस है फॉर पर्सनल एंड कॉर्पोरेट. मगर वो हमारी जयपुर चैप्टर को लीड कर रही है विच इज गीतांजलि दधीच. अब आते हैं हमारी नेक्स्ट आर्या असोपा. शी इज द चैप्टर हेड ऑफ दिल्ली एंड अदर रीजन्स. हमारे नॉर्थ एरिया में ये लीड कर रही हैं. Currently pursuing CA, completed her graduation with first division from renowned Jesus and Mary College under Delhi University. Engaged in teaching underprivileged children, was a school's commerce topper and a representative at modern United Nations. Next, Rajat Daima, Hyderabad region से हमारे chapter को lead कर रहे हैं. Rajat is currently working as a client relationship analyst with the Franklin Templeton. Formerly worked in the role of treasury analyst with Franklin Templeton itself. Also worked as anti-money laundering executive with HSBC. He is an MBA graduate with finance and is currently in a total experience of 6 years into this industry. Good at public engaging, he likes hosting events and is a good public speaker. A die-hard fan for cricket. Right now, he must not be watching IPL, मगर हमारे साथ definitely webinar attend कर रहे होंगे. So Rajat ji is heading Hyderabad region. The next comes is the ladies chapter head, which is Aditi Dadhich. And she is a financial advisor at LIC and health planner at Cares Health Insurance Company. And she has completed MBA in Finance and HR in 2012. She is NCC graduate with A grade certification and a district topper in class 12 board exams in 2006. उनकी लीडरशिप हमने पहले ही सिंचारा मीट में देख चुके हैं और इसलिए वो हमारी लेडीज चैप्टर हेड है. अब आती है सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट बात जिसकी हम बेसब्री से इंतजार कर रहे थे. हम आप लोगों को ये अनाउंस करना चाहते हैं कि जनवरी 1, 2021 से हमारा एक DITF ई बुलेटिन रिलीज हो रहा है जो हम अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ डॉक्टर तरुणा दधीच कर रहे हैं. शी इज आवर एडिटर इन चीफ. उन्होंने भी एक छोटी सी उनकी डिस्क्रिप्शन कहे तो शी इज BA, MA, BPED और BEd किया हुआ है उन्होंने हिंदी साहित्य एवं संस्कृत में. GRPF राजस्थान से, वो भिलवाड़ा राजस्थान से, और उन्होंने PhD भी किया हुआ हिंदी साहित्य से. She has also written a book, डॉक्टर बाल शौरी रेड्डी के उपन्यासों में चित्रित समाज और लघु कथा मंजूषा, और उनको सम्मान मिला हुआ है राष्ट्रीय हिंदी परिषद मेरठ द्वारा हिंदी भूषण उपाधि, तमिलनाडु हिंदी अकादमी द्वारा सम्मानित. ये सब उनके अचीवमेंट्स और उनको सर्टिफिकेशन मिला गया है. सहभागिता, राष्ट्रीय एवं अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सहयोगिता में सक्रिय सहभागिता, हिंदी साहित्य की पत्रियों में लेख एवं लघु कथा प्रकाशित. मीन्स उनकी जो साहित्य रिलेटेड हिंदी लिटरेसी का जो नॉलेज है उनको कोई बीट नहीं कर सकता. एंड ऑनलाइन प्रकाशन, ऑनलाइन पब्लिकेशन, शब्द ब्रह्मा पत्रिका में लेख प्रकाशित है उनका. प्रतिलिपि ऑनलाइन प्रकाशन पर लघु कथाएं प्रकाशित है उनकी. बेहद शोध संस्थान द्वारा शोध आलेख प्रकाशित. ये मतलब उनके खुद के रिसर्च किए हुए चीज़ों पर भी उनकी ऑनलाइन पब्लिकेशंस हैं और वो सारी चीज़ें हमारे लिए करने वाली हैं DITF ऑनलाइन ई बुलेटिन में. और आर पब्लिशर Mrs. Shobha Dadhich, she is the publisher of DITF Bulletin. Shobha Dadhich के बारे में बताऊंगा तो Shobha Dadhich done schooling from Roya School in Vilepale. She did a bachelor's in arts from Mitibai College. She is a partner in Capital Syndicate, a firm dealing in stock exchange. She is soft-spoken and is always ready to help others. Very loving lady, very, very loving. सो ये था छोटा सा जस्ट हमारा DITF के बारे में. I hope people you must be very impressed by watching this wonderful presentation. I would request you on the screen to please have a big round of applause. थोड़ा तालियां बजाकर अपने आप को वापस अवेक कर दीजिए. अब हमारे स्पीकर्स की ओर आगे बढ़े उसके पहले हमारे साथ एक राष्ट्रीय कवि जुड़े थे जो राजस्थान से हैं और उन्होंने हमारे एक छोटी सी कवि हमें रजू करने के लिए कहा है. तो मैं चाहूंगा कि बिफोर वी बिगिन आवर एक्चुअल मेन स्ट्रीम वेबिनार, वो हमारा जो राष्ट्रीय कवि की तरफ से कवि हमने जो हमें कविता लिखी है वो हम पेश करना चाहते हैं. सो नेहल, आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट यू टू प्लीज काइंडली प्ले द पोएट्री बाय योगेंद्र जी शर्मा.
मैं देवेश जी के इस अभियान के लिए निवेदन करना चाहता हूं कि इस अभिनव अभियान में मैं सनातन धर्म का प्रहरी योगेंद्र अक्षर का अभीष्ट अनुष्ठान करता हूं. धर्म निरपेक्ष नहीं, धर्म अनुरक्त होकर समस्त धर्म मजहब का अभिन्न मान सम्मान करता हूं. राष्ट्र की चरण वंदना में अभिव्यक्ति के पुरस्ताद शब्द बुद्धि की अधिष्ठात्री का ध्यान करता हूं और अत्यंत अनुद्धत भाव से नत शीश होकर विद्वान वृंद सहित तमाम जितने लोग इस वेबिनार में उपस्थित हैं उन सब के चरणों में प्रणाम करता हूं. अंगारों पर चलकर जिनके पांव नहीं जलते हैं, हिमखंडों में दबकर भी जो जिस्म नहीं गलते हैं, संघर्षों के पथरीले पथ जिन्हें नहीं खलते हैं, एक कदम दुनिया से आगे लोग वही चलते हैं. मित्रों, दाधीच इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड फाउंडेशन के फाउंडर प्रेसिडेंट महामना मेरे बड़े भाई देवेश दाधीच जी का शुक्रगुजार हूं कि अपनी अभिव्यक्ति के साथ यहाँ इस पटल पर उपस्थित हूं. वॉक टू सक्सेस के इस वेबिनार में सफलताओं का आसमान चूमने वाले कुछ श्रेष्ठ वक्ता, कुछ सफल लोग हम सभी का मार्गदर्शन करने वाले हैं. मेरे विद्वान मित्र और हिंदी के प्रोफेसर श्रद्धेय डॉक्टर शंभुनाथ तिवारी कहते हैं कि कदम बढ़ाओ तो मंजिल तुम्हारी है, वरना जमाना कब किसी का इंतजार करता है, जिसे यकीन है अपनी उड़ान पर दिल से फलक को वही परिंदा पार करता है. मैं सर्वप्रथम देवेश जी के इस संकल्प को प्रणाम करता हूं और पंक्तियां निवेदित करता हूं कि अभी तो एक पग तुमने उठाया है रवानी में. देवेश जी, क्या किया आपने? अभी तो एक पग तुमने उठाया है रवानी में, खड़े हैं मील के पत्थर तुम्हारी आगवानी में, धरो सूरज हथेली पर लगा दो आग पानी में, सितारे खुद लिखेंगे एक दिन तुमको कहानी में, सितारे खुद लिखेंगे एक दिन तुमको कहानी में. और सच कहूं तो आप सब लोग भी उतने ही महत्वपूर्ण हैं. आपकी उंगलियों की रेखाएं सृष्टि के निर्माण से लेकर आज तक जितने भी लोग धरती पर पैदा हुए और अब होंगे, उनमें से किसी से मिलती नहीं है. ये आंखों की पुतलियां भी किसी से नहीं मिलती. इसका अर्थ यह है कि आप जैसा धरती पर और किसी को बनाया ही नहीं गया. परमात्मा ने आप जैसी दृष्टि किसी को नहीं दी, आप जैसा हुनर किसी को नहीं दिया. मैं समय की सीमा में जानता हूं कि रहकर समय की सीमा में रहकर मुझे कुछ एक पंक्तियां आपको निवेदन करने का मन कर रहा है, लेकिन इससे पहले फिर आपको कहना चाहता हूं कि अपनी शक्ति को पहचानिए, अपने अंदर छुपी हुई प्रतिभा को बाहर लाइए. क्यों कि सागरों के शांत जल में ज्वार तो आते रहेंगे, सागरों के शांत जल में ज्वार तो आते रहेंगे, किंतु लहरों के लिए तूफान को आना पड़ेगा. और मंजिलों की राह में तुम मील के पत्थर उगा लो, पर शिखर की चाह में विश्वास तो लाना पड़ेगा. मंजिलों की राह में तुम मील के पत्थर उगा लो, पर शिखर की चाह में विश्वास तो लाना पड़ेगा. ठोकरों से जूझती पगडंडियां क्या देखते हो, हाँ तुम्हें संघर्ष का ही मार्ग अपनाना पड़ेगा. और चार दानों के लिए तो सब भटकते हैं जमीन पे, पर बुलंदी के लिए आकाश तक जाना पड़ेगा, पर बुलंदी के लिए आकाश तक जाना पड़ेगा, पर बुलंदी के लिए आकाश तक जाना पड़ेगा. मैं आप सबसे मुखातिब होकर एक छोटी सी कविता की पंक्तियां रखता हूं. 2 मिनट की कविता है, सुनिएगा. लोग थम जाते हैं, रुक जाते हैं, थक जाते हैं और ये कहते हैं कि हमारे भाग्य में जो था हमें मिल गया, और उसके बाद बैठ जाते हैं. कुछ लोग तो और अपनी विफलता से इतने निराश हो जाते हैं कि वो दुनिया छोड़ने का मन बना लेते हैं. माफ करना मेरे दोस्त, अरे दुनिया छोड़ने में तो बहुत मामूली सा समय लगता है, अगर हिम्मत है तो दुनिया में जी कर दिखाओ। मैं पंक्तियां पढ़ता हूं, सुनिएगा कि नहीं नहीं झुको नहीं, नहीं नहीं झुको नहीं, नहीं नहीं झुको नहीं, बुलंद हौसले रखो थकान से रुको नहीं। अरे निराश क्यों हुए, व्यथी उदास क्यों हुए, प्रदक्षिणा किए बिना व्रती हताश क्यों हुए। स्वधर्म कर्म धारते सुविज्ञता विचारते, मुकाबला किए बिना कभी न वीर हारते। अमोघ साधना रहे पवित्र भावना रहे, सुपंथ से डिगे नहीं हिमाद्रि सात ना रहे। वही विशिष्ट हो गया अजय क्लिष्ट हो गया, विभेद चक्रव्यूह को प्रणि प्रविष्ट हो गया। प्रविज्ञ हो विशेष भी, अदम्य अग्निवेश भी, अजात शत्रु हो तुम्ही अलिप्त निर्निमेष भी। अनार्य का विरोध हो, अनिष्ट का सुबोध हो, विघात घात हो कभी, विघात घात हो कभी, कभी उदग्र क्रोध हो। प्रशीत से गलो नहीं, प्रशीत से गलो नहीं, प्रदाह से जलो नहीं, प्रतिज्ञ धर्मनिष्ठ हो, अधर्म पे चलो नहीं। प्रवीर धैर्य धार लो, सुकाल को संवार लो, निनाद पांचजन्य का उरस्क में उतार लो। अदम्ब भाव से डटो, विजय भाव से जुटो, प्रणाद से प्रणीत हो, प्रतिज्ञ भाव से उठो। प्रशस्ति पंथ रोदती, ध्यान रखना जीवन में कभी कोई आपकी प्रशंसा करे तो समझ लेना आपका पथ अवरुद्ध होने वाला है, आपको वो रोक रहा है। प्रशस्ति पंथ रोधती, विपत्तियां विबोधती, विमोह की विभूति को विनम्रता विमोहती। समस्त सिद्धि प्राप्त है, प्रवात भी परास्त है, प्रयास तो करो प्रणीत, अभीष्ट व्योम व्याप्त है। तुरंग की त्वरा वही, उठो की वक्त है यही। कसो तुणीर पृष्ठ पे पुकारती तुम्हें मही, सुजान हो सुरम्य हो, प्रतीति से प्रणम्य हो, सुगम्य से अगम्य का अभूत तारतम्य हो। वसुंधरा सुकंत हो, तुम्ही अरिंद हंत हो, असीम शक्तिमंत हो, अनादि हो अनंत हो। नई उमंग ठान लो, नई तरंग ठान लो, उठो की लक्ष्य के लिए हर एक जंग ठान लो। विरुद्ध से झुको नहीं, विरुद्ध से झुको नहीं, प्रदीप्ति से चुको नहीं, उठो की व्योम चूम लो। अजस्र हो रुको नहीं, अशिष्ट दिष्ट झाड़ लो, अशिष्ट दिष्ट झाड़ दो, अरिष्ट को पछाड़ दो। अनिष्ट क्लेश की जड़ें जमीन से उखाड़ दो, समष्टि व्यष्टि जीत लो, अचूक दृष्टि जीत लो। उठो उदग्र इष्टि से समग्र शिष्य जीत लो, उठो उदग्र इष्टि से समग्र शिष्य जीत लो। नहीं नहीं झुको नहीं, नहीं नहीं चुको नहीं, बुलंद हौसले रखो थकान से रुको नहीं। और कहना चाहता हूं कि तमन्ना तुंग शिखरों की बड़े अरमान रखते हैं, लुटाकर जान भी अपनी वतन की शान रखते हैं। कहो दीवानगी या फिर हमारे हौसले आली, कहो दीवानगी या फिर हमारे हौसले आली। हमारी मुट्ठियों में हम कई तूफान रखते हैं, हमारी मुट्ठियों में हम कई तूफान रखते हैं। आप सबके जीवन के लिए मंगल कामनाएं करता हुआ अपनी वाणी को विराम देता हूं, विश्राम देता हूं। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
It was a wonderful poem, कविता जो योगेंद्र जी शर्मा ने रजू की थी। एक बार उनके लिए जोरदार तालियां होनी चाहिए हमारी स्क्रीन पर। दो हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं तो उन्होंने एक बहुत ही अच्छी वीडियो पे हमको कविता सुनाई है। अब हम आगे बढ़ते हैं हमारे मेन स्ट्रीम वेबिनार में, और मैं हमारे मॉडरेटर पीयूष दधीच जी का स्वागत करता हूं, मगर उसके पहले दो लाइन उनके बारे में बोलना चाहूँगा और इंट्रोडक्शन देना चाहूँगा। Piyush sir is qualified financial professional with over 10 years of work experience in various fields, namely financial planning and analysis, financial due diligence, index research, equity research, risk management and auditing and assurance. Currently, he is in association with a company named Swiss RE as Assistant Vice President in Analysis and Reporting Team, looking after financial planning and analysis for PNC Reinsurance for APAC. I would welcome Piyush Dadhich ji, and please, I would hand it over to you from now onward so that you can welcome our all panelists and start the session.
Hi everyone. Hope everyone can hear me. And thanks Kiranji for stupendous introduction. Let me start my PowerPoint presentation probably. I'll share my screen. Let me know when you're able to see it.
Yes.
So thanks. Let me know if you are able to see it now.
Yes, we are able to see it.
Thanks a lot. So I would like to thank all our panelists today for joining us and joining us for guiding our young sisters and brothers. Welcome to Walk to Success. And we are joining with 5 panelists, and they are coming from various streams of experience. So we have Devesh ji and Ravi ji joining from IT, So if you have any questions with respect to IT field in cloud or machine learning or artificial intelligence, you can just put in the chat, though you have already given the questions while filling up the form. But if you still see some questions you want to ask, feel free to drop them in. And we also have Arunji and Rameshji from finance, and then Pratyushji from innovation sustainability, also from logistics specific. So any questions in that regard, please feel free to put in the chat. To start with the event, so we all started planning for this event 1.5 months back, and that's when we all thought of reaching out to all our panelists, and there was a great response. We all got close to 300 plus registrations, and we see more than 100 people joining today. So it's quite a feat in itself, and I would like to call and thank our exceptional eminent speakers and panelists which we have today. It would be a great session to hear from them in their journey of life and how better we can understand the journey of our life and can calibrate it and work towards bridging our gaps which we have. So that's the main motto of hearing this. And in the shortage of time, since we are already have quite taken a lot of time, so let's start with our extraordinary leaders. So let's go to first slide and our first panelist. Welcome, Pratyushji. You see, I think there is the screen coming up. So you see the education and experience of Pratyushji on the screen, but what you don't see, I'm going to tell is he's youngest out of all our panelists, which we have. And the face itself tells how creative and exuberant he is. And he is into a very unique field. So we all brothers, we are into either finance or we are into IT or engineering, but he comes from a very different and very unique field. So he comes from innovation, sustainability, also part of logistics specific, future oriented mission. So that's his main core area. And I want to welcome him with warm regards. And since we have got a lot of questions already, so let's start with the first question to Pratyushji, which is about sharing his experience in innovation sustainability field and how demand this course is in and how people can pursue it. So over to you, Pratyushji. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that great welcome, Piyush. And a very, very good afternoon from Scotland. But again, at the same time, I wish good morning and good evening because I know there are people joining from all over the world. And it's nice to see all the panel members and however we started this program, it has been an amazing experience. Going back straight to your question, I think sharing my experience in as you said, innovation and logistics, like you mentioned that it's completely new line for most of the people here. So I think probably it's best for me to start from the scratch because what I want to mention is that as starters, I did my graduation in computer science in Mumbai. And that is something which most of the people can relate to. But as I started doing my master's, I moved towards more logistics and supply chain management side. And one of the main reasons for doing that was my association with a recruitment consultancy. So I was doing a part-time job in Mumbai where I was recruiting people in logistics field. So that was one of my motivation. And I was like, this field is doing really well at the moment, and it has got amazing potential to grow in the future. And it also helps that my father was also working in the similar field. So that helped me to explore it even more further. So the kind of experience I had, I also did a kind of like MBA program, and I wanted to specialize myself into the more specialist field. And that's when I decided to move abroad. And when I went to the university called Sheffield, where I did my master's degree. And what I really liked about this particular program was that it was focusing more on the sustainability side of things. Now, this is something which is coming up a lot in the recent discussions of climate change. But again, not all the companies are completely focused on it right now. But probably in the coming years, that will become a big focus point. And it has already started to happen even in India. So if you look at the West, it's all the discussions are already there, the impact factors are there, and it's also getting implemented in most of the fields. But this is something which will become more apparent even in any other context as well. So my motivation was to place myself in the field when the research was getting more and more developed in this area. When I joined the research, like started in like last decade or so in the green supply chain management and logistics. Before I go ahead, I think what I would also like to tell is like, because many people don't understand this line so much. So from my perspective, logistics is more about movement of goods. So most of the people, like, even if you talk about 2020, which has been an eventful year for everybody, I think one of the biggest thing was that you were still able to get your goods delivered at your home. So you're talking about the whole machinery which is working behind it, which gets ignored many times because if, for example, you need food and if you're under lockdown, you have to order the food online. Somebody will take the order and deliver to you. So in easy terms, it's like it covers all the transport part, but it also covers like where is that food store, how it is moved, and how efficiently it is delivered to you. So that is the whole operational part of things. But when I talk about sustainability, it's about what is the best way of delivering to you with less carbon emissions. Now, we have a lot of talks going around about how these foods are getting delivered, and they use diesel vehicles. But for example, if it gets delivered by, let's say, electric vehicles, then it's more green compared to your traditional delivery methods. So that's where I focus because my job is to reduce the carbon emissions from the deliveries, what you get at home. That's part of my job. What I also do is like I develop models to help most of the companies to reduce their carbon emissions. And that could relate to like building some of the IT apps, which can help them to reduce the carbon emissions. Or the second thing is I model various business strategies. So what it helps is like it allows company to understand how the world will look like in the future. Many people talk about what kind of world are we living in? Like who would have thought like 2020 would have been this kind of year? But in our world, we actually test these scenarios because we are prepared that the world won't be same even next year. It will keep changing. So I think that is where the innovation and research becomes more powerful because we don't work in the same real world examples. What we work is in like different scenarios, how the world is going to look like. So for example, we're already working on the scenario that probably we won't be using all the cars and trucks the way we are using it in today's world because it will become more efficient. There'll be alternate fuels. So how does that world is going to look like? So that's where my experience is coming from. And some of the key points of my job is like, it's about knowledge generation. What most of the guys do is like, they already get knowledge, they study and become expert in that knowledge. But what I do is I create new knowledge. So basically doing all the research and coming up with what is the next thing that could happen in the world. So that's what I research on. And based on that, I publish articles. So I publish articles in some of the top journals in the world to help them to understand this area and also develop the last research which has already happened in this area. I disseminate my knowledge by teaching master students. I take lectures in various universities and also some of the organizations. And I also attend international conferences to basically present these papers and also like create more awareness in this area of study. So for the any aspirants who are looking to move in this kind of field, this is one of the fields where you will never find any issues with the job, first of all, because even now, when there is a pandemic going on, I'm based in the UK. If I will open any recruitment websites, there is a higher demand of people who are working in logistics and supply chain management because you will also come under one of the key workers because you have to make sure that goods are getting delivered to your doorsteps. And this is a big area because sustainability has just started to become bigger as we talk. That means the problem of climate change is going to increase and it's going to become even more difficult to solve this. And with the coming days, so the target is that we need to decarbonize most of the sectors by 2050. And there is an immense pressure on governments, businesses, or any individual organizations. So the idea is that we need to reduce the carbon emissions by 2050. And that depends on every country, how much share they have. that could range from like many countries like UK going carbon neutral. And also what Devesh mentioned in one of the talks I had with him earlier, that Mr. Modi was delivering a speech, and he mentioned that Ladakh is going to become carbon neutral. So that carbon neutral thing is already happening here, but I was really happy to see that it has just started to come in the radar of India as well. So that's why it's becoming more and more important in the future. And most of the people who are doing like most of like traditional courses or core courses like engineering or like chartered accountant, and I know many of my brothers are into these sector and field of study, but what everybody has got is transferable skills. So the most important thing here in our field is like those skills can be transferred to research, and that could be used to develop models which suits that kind of background, because everybody can make a contribution. It's about solving the world problems, and everybody is in a unique space to bring some kind of solutions on the table. So everybody in this particular field becomes really important. So I will never say like, this by doing this particular course, you can reach here. There is no set pattern. What is important is what you gain from your life experiences, how well you're doing in your studies, and how well you can implement your skills in any other field. Not necessarily the kind of study you did, you have to implement in the same one, because these kind of courses you can learn quite quickly. It's a management course. So for example, like I'm coming from computer science and management background, so then I can use my computer science skills to develop models for like logistics and supply chain management. It is same for any other people who are coming from different background. They can actually help in policy making stuff, because whatever you do has got a great impact in this field. Because right now the kind of work I'm doing is I've got impact in the government. So government is developing policies based on my research work. So whatever recommendations we give, that gets passed on by the politician, and that's in the newspaper like within a week or so. So that becomes really important, because you're driving the agenda here. It's just not about like working for one company. You're driving the agenda of the whole country here, and also helping governments to basically solve a bigger issue. So that's where this field becomes more attractive and it's more satisfying, because you can do more than you think. And there is no limit. There is no cap on what you can do in this field, because it's up to you. You can drive the research as much as you like and basically create like world-changing solutions.
Thanks, Pratyush, for answering this. And as you rightly mentioned, that logistics is one of the fields which will always be in vogue. It will always be in demand. So you have to move your goods right, and to make it reach to right set of consumers and customers. Completely agree with that. Thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge. As you also mentioned about climate change and less carbon emission, there's another question which is there from audience with respect to carbon credit. So they're asking more over how carbon credit works, and how do you really plan to reduce carbon footprints in your projects which you really work on. So
Okay.
in the interest of time, this is the next question for you. Thanks.
That's a really good question, whoever's put this question. And for this, I think I'll provide a more simplistic and probably a longer explanation, because I think that'll be helpful for everybody. So in very simple terms, any of us, let's take an example. You plan to go to, let's say, someone else's house, or for shopping, or for any kind of travel activities. Now, you shouldn't have any good reason to leave the house right now. So I'm not saying that you should leave the house in 2020, but let's say you decide to leave the house. If you make a journey, you're going to take a car, you're going to take a train, or any other transport modes. Everything has got carbon emission. And if you do air travel, it has got the highest air emissions. So now I'm going to talk the same thing in terms of companies. Now, what companies do is like they manufacture products. The way they manufacture, they have got carbon emissions. As I mentioned earlier, that all the governments and policymakers are setting decarbonization target, because most of the countries are planning to make their country carbon neutral by 2050. That also means that every sector has got a role to play in that achievement of carbon neutral goals. So for businesses, there is a credit what they receive. So what it means is like they will give certain credits depending on the targets they have set. What they can do is, for example, at the end of the year, they can basically emit, let's say, a ton of carbon emissions. Now, if your limit is 10 ton of carbon emissions, and if you're under that 10 ton of carbon emissions, you're doing good. But let's say you spend more than that, and you, let's say, spend like 12 tons of carbon emissions. So that means you have gone over the board by 2 ton of carbon emission. So now what you can do with that 2 ton of carbon emission is you can look at the market. If there is another company, for example, they have the same limit, but they only spend like 8 ton of carbon emission, then actually you can sell that carbon credits to them, and you will get money for doing so. So that is one way of doing it. That's how what you call credit trading scheme for carbon. And there is a very popular one in the EU, which is EU trading scheme, which started in 2005. But what is also closely related is that you also have something called carbon offsetting. Yeah, this is very closely linked definition because carbon offsetting is different. Now, as what Piyush mentioned in his question, that how do you reduce those carbon emissions? So like the area where I come from the transport side of things. In that area, if you want to reduce carbon emission from trucks, what you can do is basically you can switch to alternate fuels. So you can run the vehicles on gas, electricity, or hydrogen. Or you can modify your vehicles to make them lighter, which reduces carbon emission, or you can change the design of the vehicles. So in that way, your vehicles becomes more aerodynamic. You can also do like management things, like you give driver training to people. You also like optimize the routes of the truck. So that becomes more attractive for the companies. So you can only get certain amount of reduction in the carbon emission by doing those steps. So in that case, what happens is that either you can reduce the carbon emissions by doing that thing, or second is you can trade the allowances what you have and actually offset it. So in case of offsetting, what they do is like, I can actually offset that particular budget of my carbon emission to some NGO, which is into afforestation. So basically, it could be in India, it could be in any parts of Africa. So they will say like, okay, fine, this like 2 tons of carbon emission we can save you by planting more trees. And that becomes carbon offsetting. So this is a really attractive field where you can do the trading part, but what you have to make sure is offsetting is different than carbon credits. And what I've seen in most of the academic articles as well, they mix these terms a lot. So that's why I wanted to explain the both part so that there's a proper definition in place.
Kiranji, I think there are no more questions on this field. So probably we go to the next one. We will see the chat at the end, and if there are any more questions, maybe we can probably come back to Pratyush for those specific questions. In shortest of time, let's go to next panelist, and we see Ramesh ji, right? So Ramesh is a bit delayed due to his office meeting. So he works in UAE, and there is a working day on Monday. So he probably will join at the end. We'll see. So the next panelist which we have is Devesh ji, and we can see the introduction on the screen now. What we don't see is actually he comes up with 25 years of experience and a complete industry stalwart, right? A perfect example of consistency and perseverance, and that can be seen from his profile, going from project manager to delivery head to delivery partner to senior director in Infosys. He comes with abundance of knowledge in IT and cloud field, and also with respect to project management and end-to-end service delivery. So it is really nice to have him here. And there were so many questions in this field. We also have Ravi.
Thank you, Kiran. Hello, everyone. This is Devesh. Hope all you are doing well and safe in COVID times. Thanks a lot, Devesh ji and Piyush and Kiran, for organizing this and giving us an opportunity to interact and learn today. I think the today's webinar topic is very relevant to the context where we are in today. Especially when a lot of young people are out and looking forward for a greater success in life. Let me start, with sharing my journey and learning, which started 23 years back. After my master's in computers in 97 in Jaipur, I started my career in Unicorn in Delhi. And first job was in a software engineer in MI's department. But I realized in a few months that the software bug fixing is not my area of interest. And it was a very difficult start for me. In fact, I left the job and then taken up in a management role in a different project in Jaipur. But I was looking for a better option. And I got an opportunity in DCM Shriram as a trainee in SAP implementation project in '98. And SAP was like similar what we have today in AWS, Azure, or 5G and AI kind of opportunity we have around. And many people, I think, looking at this at this point of time. And I saw this as a great opportunity to learn the new technology. And I picked up that one, and I have spent around 2 years time in learning these within the DCM and prepared myself for a consulting job and joined HCL in 2000. And HCL placed me in UK for an implementation project in a few months time. And that's how my journey has started. So I would say in the beginning, the people who are starting their journey right now, I would like to tell them, the walk to success is that you try it, take a small step forward and see that if you can learn and improve and embrace the opportunity. And I'm sure you might see, you'll surprise yourself. So that is what my suggestion, people who are, trying out, now, and they are looking for better opportunities and success in life. I would like to also summarize my journey, right? After, my assignments in UK, I moved to a project in Australia and I was doing well. And during that time, I heard about Infosys, and Infosys was working with top 1,000 companies at that point of time, executing project at the CMM level 4 and 5, great plans and in terms of the employee stock options and things like that. And I pursued and joined Infosys in 2000 as a project manager, 2002 as a project manager. And since then I played the multiple roles across geographies in US and Europe, most of the time in Europe, around 14 years, into client facing and delivery roles. And overall, if I look at my 23 years in IT service industry, has been very exciting. And the way the technology is moving right now, I believe that IT will continue to be an exciting place in years to come. To summarize, overall, I would say that although, I came from a very middle class, average and the medium background, yet I was able to move forward. And in the today's world, I think you all can easily achieve more. Just, believe in yourself, do a little bit more hard work, and I hope you will make it right. So this is what my experience and summary on my learnings, what I have achieved so far. So if any questions, I think there was a question which Pratyush was talking earlier, not Pratyush, Piyush was talking earlier about the opportunities in the digital world. Shall I talk about that one?
Yes, sure. The question is, which technology would be most prominent after COVID-19 world, which will create opportunities for people? So what do you think under your experience, and what do you think is going to be creating more opportunities after this event?
Right. So I think the way I look at it is that this post-COVID situation is that, very different. It's dramatically changed the way we operate or the way we manage the things. And I think Pratyush has talked about logistics and supply chain. There is a significant change on the supply chain business. The point of time deliveries and other things have changed significantly. The most profound impact which I saw was on a work environment context. If you look at the spaces between digital and physical, seamlessly integrated, there's no more 9 to 5 kind of jobs. People have option to work across geographies in a different time zone. And this is made possible because of the majority of organizations shifted to 90% of their workforce to work from home. And you might have seen all of you are operating from home right now since March. So this is one change which I see fundamentally, people are connecting from anywhere, from any different type of devices. The super specialization is creating professionals who are offering their expertise on contractual basis, which was not possible earlier. Another change which I observed in work environment is that the age, ethnicity, and gender and social economic backgrounds are not disqualified. Earlier, like, the old age people, or, they didn't have an opportunities, or the, part-time workers, the women who are, want to resume the work, they had the challenges. So today we have, scenarios where you can find the 35-year-old business leader, you can have a 60-year-old data analyst homemaker turned designer, a farmer who runs supply chain networks. So all these things are happening, which was not possible earlier. So that is a significant change I can see in a work environment context. And also if I look at the way the economy is driving, probably is more skill based rather than degrees based, right? University degree is no longer is, adequate or, lifelong employability, I would say. So it's all about the new skills and the roles in technology and other things. Another thing which I noticed apart from the work environment is the digital agenda within the organization has been pushed heavily. You might have seen the significant, adoption of new technology, especially in the context of edge computing, cloud, AI, ML, and 5G, those kind of networks. So these are the things which is, heavily pushed, within the organization. They are looking the business cases around there. There are use cases around that. Another thing which I see, that a lot of new process and working models have been, came into existence. And this is all, if I look at, this online tele-education, telehealth, these are things were not present, at least in India context, right? This has been very visible and is going to stay for a long time. The service technology, and this will be an tech agenda for, India as well, and also as well as a brand, right? So the way I look at, there's a whole lot of, digital push. There's a change in the work environment, there's significant opportunities for different kind of workers, and tech will going to, stay for a long time. That's how I see the context and scenario. And I think it's a great opportunity as a country, and I think for the people who are in IT.
Thanks, Deveshji. Deveshji, there is one more question which we see is there, since you mentioned on cloud and also blockchain, right? So there's a question that, is it wise to shift one's career towards these newer coming technologies which are available and coming up in market now?
I think it's inevitable. I would say, because I know that I have changed to the world of SAP and Oracle, 20 years back. But, if you look at today, this whole, paradigm is shifting towards the cloud, right? Everyone will ultimately end up into either public cloud or a hybrid cloud kind of construct. And the way workloads are moving, and the growth of this hyperscalers, AWS or Azure or Google, right? You can see that this is inevitable, and it's not for the cost reasons. The client is moving because of the service differentiation, right? Because the new use cases are built up on that, and the cloud native technologies are, changing this whole paradigm significantly. So I would say it's a must to move to the newer skills, either in cybersecurity or in the cloud or in the data space, where you have analytics, AI and ML, So these are the three, and maybe 5G is another, I would say. So moving to a new technology is, I think, is sort of a must to have people who are in IT.
Thanks a lot, Deveshji. We will look for other questions in the chat box. Until then, let's go to next participant. So probably I'll just share my screen. I'm really sorry. Can't really look for home bandwidth nowadays, since we all are working.
Piyush, meanwhile, you have the PPT. I have one question for Deveshji. It is again related to the languages. Deveshji, since we have been learning, you have been in the industry from past 20 years. You have been learning Oracle, SAP as languages like Java, C, C++, C hash. And nowadays people are turning towards machine learning, artificial intelligence, data analytics, and languages like Python. So what do you feel after an engineer becomes a graduate in any of the field like mechanical, electronics or computer engineer, what language he should be knowing it to sustain in this IT industry for the next coming future of 5 years or 10 years down the line?
Right. So when you say SAP and Oracle, they were like an enterprise resource packages. So they were much more larger than a language construct. They were having the business solutions and, end-to-end business process flow and things like that, right? But when you come to the context of the languages, right, or the skills which you are to acquire, right? So my my suggestion is that look at the learning around the cloud native technologies, especially all these which is coming in the world of If you look at DevOps, agile kind of ways of working, if you look at, or Ansibles for the automation, and look at the platform which provide the ready to go kind of an automation learning capabilities. So all these, I think, Python and these Ansibles are anyway used in automation. So these are the things we have to pick up. On other side is that cybersecurity is also a very exciting area with a lot of working opportunities, I would say. And because everything today has been designed, in line with the security. And there's a larger construct and relevance because of the new world of cloud and 5G. Cybersecurity has become much more relevant in the today's scenario. So I would say that's another promising area. Easily, if someone can spend, like, let's say 1 or 2 years in that area, at least I would expect 100 to 100% jump in his salary and position in 2 years time.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Over to you, Piyush.
Thanks a lot, Kiranji. Yeah, that was really a very relevant question. So if we go to next slide, so we have some special mention guests out here with us today. I will just like to call out the names. So we have Rajesh Sharma from Noida, who's brother of Arun Sharma, who's one of panelists with us. We have Rajesh Sharma from Mumbai as well, who's president of Mumbai Dadhich Samaj. And we also have Surinder Vyasji with us, who is company secretary of DITF. And also Sandeep Ji Sharma from Dubai and Puneet Ji Joshi from New York. That was about the special mention slide. And if we go to the next one, which one is about Ravi. So if you have any questions for Ravi specifically, you can just go into chat and can type there. To start with, Ravi has 10 years of experience and even more than that in information technology and communication. And he has quite a lot of work have done in DevOps, or development operations, right? Which includes software development, IT operations, and industry operations and automation part. So the first question which came up for Ravi from audience was, what really DevOps is all about and how someone can look for the career in that field. Over to you, Ravi.
Thank you, Piyush. And at first, congratulations to Devesh Uncle ji for DITF and such a great initiative, and also to Piyush ji, Kiran ji, and to everybody. And to the question, the DevOps, we can divide into two parts: development and operations. So basically, in any software company or in many product even companies, like when we create the software, so we have to provide the delivery to the customer. For that, it is not just that the software, the developer has already created the software and the tester has already done the testing and it has been delivered. It is not like that. So regular testing has to be done, and regular delivery has to be done, and regular testing has to be done. And with this agile scenario, the DevOps term came out. And here in DevOps, what you do is to keep the system, like the continuous integration, the integration of the different parts of the different features and different parts of the software together, and to deliver it regularly for testing and finally for the delivery to the customer. I think, yeah, it is all about. And these days, earlier it was done by just with the what should I say, just with the normal, like building environment and delivery. But these days it is being done, like now the companies, they are adapting it with on cloud, like on AWS and Azure. You can also do the you can set up the with the version control with Gits and other tools. You just assemble all these features together and deliver for the building of the software, and then you go for the continuous delivery. What should I say more? I think, is it okay, or do I I think there are many terms with the agile and the Git. I don't know if everybody they know about it, or should I explain it more?
I think Raviji, that's well covered. I think there's one more question. Like you must have seen quite a lot of interviews in your 10 years of career. So when you look for someone in DevOps, initial fresher kind of a role, or maybe into similar fields, what skills you really see in the candidate who's applying for the position? So it's from people who are just out of colleges or going into colleges. They want to know what is a mandatory kind of skill which I think is very appropriate to get for this DevOps or similar roles.
For the DevOps, the main category is that they must have some interest in IT. If they are not interested in IT, then like the first criteria is already gone, then it is not possible to take them in. The second thing is in the programming field, scripting. Scripting, like as Devesh said, with the shell or like this Ansible, the automation has to be done. And the PowerShell scripting is also there. With Python, you also do the scripting, and that is very much important because you have to maintain the complete environment for that. And other than scripting, you also like in coming days, the cloud computing knowledge, and also with the complete software life cycle that you also must know. People, they can also learn, but at least with this basic ideas, they must come in, like we can take them and they can go beyond and they can excel in the DevOps field.
Thanks a lot, Raviji, for sharing this. In interest of time, let's go to the next panelist, and we will look back if there is any question in the chat for any of our panelists who have already given us quite hints on what we really wanted to know. So let's go to the next panelist now. Thanks a lot, Raviji, for your time. We'll look back if any more questions come back in the chat section. Let's come to our final panelist for the day. So Arunji. And Arunji is actually working with Bank of America in investment banking field. If we start and look at his career, he did his graduation from in mathematics and then MS in computer science and then MBA from INSEAD and ended up in investment banking field. So if you see his life, it's quite one thing which we all feel scared of, right? The change. We all feel very comfortable in the environments where we are, and we don't just want to move out. But this particular profile tells us that it's not just about being in comfort zone, but change should be the constant thing in your life, which takes you to the newer heights. So I think that's what Arunji's profile talks about in one line, I think. And I want to welcome Arunji now to the stage. The question which we got there were a lot in finance, and since Ramesh couldn't join, I think they would all be towards Arunji now. But to start with specific to investment banking, people want to know the journey of investment banking, what it really means. People don't generally know what it is, and also how can someone get into investment banking. People who are already from commerce field or who are already chartered accountants applying for these jobs, they do not generally end up getting that. It's quite a tough field to enter. So what do you really think is an appropriate skill set for entering into investment banking? So that's for you, Arunji, for the first question. Over to you. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you, Piyush, and thanks everybody for having this webinar. It's quite an amazing feat to have so many people, attend. So that speaks a lot of Devesh, Uncle, and Piyush, and everybody on the panelists. So thank you for that. In terms of how to get into bank, so the first question was, okay, what is investment banking? Yeah, great question. I've been in the field for 14, 15 years. I didn't know anything about banking 6 months before I joined the industry. So, times have changed, but so investment banking, broadly speaking, is, I would say, split into two categories. One is the private side and one is the public side information. And private is anything which is not, bankers dealing with information which is not disclosed publicly, which essentially means three kind of streams of work. One is mergers and acquisitions advisory. which is, a company acquires or merges with another company. You as a banker advise either the seller or the buyer on the merits of transactions, be it valuation, be it, value creation to your share price, etc. So that's one side of the work. Second is capital raising, which can be divided into two parts. One is raising capital through equity, so all the IPOs, equity issuances, rights issues, etc. When a company needs capital to grow or to delever, delever meaning pay down debt, they may need more equity, typically raising through public markets, but also from private markets. So that's the equity side of capital raise. And then there is a debt side, which is you can raise capital through debt investors, bond investors, banks, loans, etc. Again, raising capital to fund growth or any other use the companies may have. So that's on the capital advisory side. And then the third side is restructuring, which is very relevant right now. When companies go through bankruptcies, you need advisors to help them navigate the difficult period. You can either work with the company as a banker, or you can work with the debt holders, who then become the shareholders of the company in a bankruptcy scenario. So yeah, these are the three sub verticals within the private side, which is what we, at least in the US and the Western world, that's what we call as investment banking. As I work with industrial clients in the US, and I used to work in London before this. My clients were industrial companies who are, and particularly my focus is on M&A, that's mergers and acquisitions. It's an industrial company going about and buying other industrial company, or expanding in other areas. So that's on the private side of banking. And then there is a public side, which some people mistake it for investment banking as well, but it is more sales and trading, which essentially is the brokerage part of the business. Most investment banks have that side of the business as well, which is being the brokers to hedge funds or other institutional investors, and helping them navigate the markets and make buy or sell decisions. So be it on the equity side. So once the company is listed, its stocks are trading, then the sales and trading guys will be working with the institutional investors to help them make buy and sell decisions, or even just execute the order sometimes. And then there is a debt side, a public debt side as well, which is a relatively developed market in the Western world, not so developed in India or in Asia. And debt trading is usually not done through exchanges. It is through money market firms, which is such as Bank of America and other big investment banks. So there is a debt desk as well, which does all the public trading of bonds. That's like the broad equity. And then there's a lot of back office functions in investment banking, even equity research, for example, which publishes research or credit research. That's more of a cost function in banks, because usually the researches are given for free for investors, for companies. I would categorize equity research as an important part of the investment bank, but it's not how banks make money. But it's a nice to have service. And then there are a lot of back office functions which support all these front office lines. So that's what banking is. How do you get into banking? It depends on geography, actually. In the US and in London, I started my job as a banking analyst in London. It is pretty open. Anyone can apply. you don't really need to be a CA. I mean, you can. I mean, I used to have kids from, who've studied history from Cambridge or Oxford or what have you. They haven't really done any finance or accountancy or commercial background, but they're there and it works. I think in India, it's usually through I think it's post MBAs or CAs, particularly bigger firms such as ours or Goldman or Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan, all these bigger banks. At least our policy is to hire only from IIM ABC at analyst level, because India market is pretty small. My team there would have only 20 people, whereas my team here has 200 people. And I'm talking 200 people only in industrials banking, spread between London and Europe, London and New York, I would say. But in India, 20 people as bankers, within any sector, so to speak, including corporate banking. And that's a different topic. Corporate banking is something different, and I can talk about it on some other day if anyone is interested. But it's much smaller there, so you need only maybe 2 or 3 analysts, per bank, and then if you go to IMABC, they can fill the pockets, right? So it's much easier for banks to just limit recruitment at these firms. But then I understand from my colleagues in India that there are many other smaller investment banks who hire from other business schools or from with accountancy background, etc. That helps as well. But then I candidly think if banking is something, investment banking is something that you want to do, if you can, start in one of the Western markets. It's much more developed. It's a product of America, then it reached Europe, and then it reached Asia. Indians or Asians, not just Indians, Asians do not want to pay money for advice as a culture, right? So इंडिया में किसी को ज्ञान देना और लेना, ज्ञान देना सबको अच्छा लगता है, ज्ञान खरीदना किसी को अच्छा नहीं लगता. And so the importance of advisory is not really appreciated in Asian markets that much, and that's why the teams are much smaller. Whereas as you go west, London has or Europe is slightly developed. And then you go to New York, even between London and New York, it's so different. If I have to, when I pitch to my clients and ask for advisory fee, it's when I was in London, my team would be happy if we would win like a $4 million contract advisory fee. Here, it's like you might win a $10 million advisory fee and people will not blink. It's meaningfully different. So you go from New York to London to India, the importance of advisory kind of diminishes, and that's maybe cultural. I mean, banking is a product of America historically, so the businesses have gotten used to the value that we as banking advisors bring to them. And that is also reflected in the fee that the clients are willing to pay, etc. I mean, you go to Asia, everyone will pay you for the capital raise, right? Everyone needs money. It's paisa de, and then I'm good, right? But gyan dega, I'm not paying you for the gyan, right? That's that's a cultural that's a cultural issue. So coming back to the question, how do you get back and get into banking? If you are in India, there are a couple of routes, right? One is you can start at a smaller bank in India and then hope that you can transition. gain some experience, whichever field it is, and get into business school. And when I say business school, just go to the only top 10s of the world if you can. I mean, otherwise it's honestly maybe 15. Otherwise it's a waste of money. So go to the top 10 to 15 business schools, and then most banks in the US and in London hire at associate level post MBA. So that's a good route. And then the third one, which works, but it's pretty limited, and I've seen people doing it, is like even at Bank of America, some folks start at back offices in Mumbai or Bangalore. Like we have something called, it used to be called Continuum. No, Continuum. It is still called Continuum Bank of America. It's in India. There's a big army of CAs and some are MBAs and other folks who help us do the back office, not the back, but the things that we don't do here. They because they have an army, they can get it done pretty quickly, and from sometimes we bring them over to our offices here in New York or in London, and most of them are very good. It's just, maybe sometimes better than some of my analysts who I work with here. So, and then we make a pitch. If we really like them and if there is a need, we might bring them over and they become full-time bankers in New York. And I've seen some cases, but that's rare. But it happens. Yeah. So
Thanks a lot, Arunji. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Arunji. I started with, but I didn't pay. It's pretty early morning for you. Must be quite a time to have coffee, and we are disturbing you with.
No, it's all good. No, it's glad to connect with you all, and because of this webinar, I woke up early and I had my workout done already, so it's all good. It's a good start of Sunday.
And thanks for making the explanation of IB pretty easy for us. Like we didn't know that equity research is a cost function, making it pretty easy for us. Thanks a lot for that. There's one more question coming up from audience, and that's on sectors. So we see quite how unprecedented times we are in, and we haven't seen the world like this. And there's complete, if we say markets are falling and there is no way out. So what do you think are the sectors which would boom or particularly would do really well after the COVID? And this question is to you personal. I completely understand you cannot comment otherwise. So that's what you really think would be the sectors performing really well after the COVID.
After the COVID, I mean, who knows when that comes? It's a good question. And by after the COVID, if whoever asked the question, if they mean like once we have the vaccine and why life is all back to normal, well then whatever went down has to come up. I mean, which is the travel, the hospitality, all the hotels and what have you. Even even industrial sector, like we're taking a hit right now. So if it is really post-COVID, then people will start travel both for business and for pleasure. And the aerospace and defense sectors have taken significant hit. It's in some cases it's so bad it's unheard of. That should come back. I mean, it will come back if life is back to normal, right? People have to travel, and they will. Services and hospitality sectors will come up. But the question, I mean, that's obvious, I think. But the question is the when, right? That's if I knew the answer, I wouldn't be sitting here, maybe, sitting on the beach of Hawaii and sipping my pina colada, right? But, and then right now you have, all the tech firms and healthcare firms are on fire, rightly so, because post-COVID world will change. But I personally think all those factors have already been priced in. So if you're really asking for a stock picking, and I'm not a stock picker, by the way, but as I said, I work on the private side. I'm not on the sales and trading side, but I think tech and healthcare are great, but I think they have been priced in. Everyone have, maybe in the early days of COVID, obviously, it's no secret, and I don't have crystal ball, but it's no secret that all the tech firms are on fire. And if I had to invest money, I wouldn't go there now, but I've been proven wrong so many times that I wouldn't really advise anyone to go with my advice there. But my personal hunch is, whatever, at least tech and healthcare have been priced in, and then other sectors, as I said, will come up. But the question is when, and if anyone really wants to play the long-term game, then play with the utilities and other kind of relatively acyclical sectors. But I'll pause there. I can follow up if there are any other questions there.
Thanks a lot, Arunji. It's really helpful. Thanks for showing complete explanation. Yep.
One thing I would add is, there will be some structural changes that in some industries. For example, commercial real estate in the West, not in India, but here. I think one of the panelists mentioned, that obviously we are all in work from home environment, and even when we go in a post-COVID climate, I think particularly in the West, where connectivity, etc., and people are more used to working remotely, there is a big question mark whether a full workforce will go back into the offices. And from a corporate standpoint, right? You think about if they can start saving money by reducing their commercial real estate footprint. My office here in Bryant Park in New York is a prime location. It's and if I don't need to be there, they might start, using that space for something else. So it's from a return standpoint, I think commercial real estate in bigger cities in the West might take a hit. So that's one big question mark. And then the second question mark, I think we have a supply chain expert here, but purely from accounting perspective, I think that's the Western world has been so focused on return on equity, right? You go through any business school, the first thing they teach you is to work on lean inventory, low working capital, etc. And the companies have been so focused on return on equity over the past 20 to 30 to 40 years, and rightly so, that they do not really build in a rainy day scenario in their in the projections and budgeting and planning. Would that change is a big question. And when I say would that change, will there be onshoring? Right now, there is so much dependent on the supply chain, factor and, inventory production happening in China or India or wherever else. Would industrial companies either onshore some of their critical manufacturing to US or Europe, wherever those firms are? That's one question. And two, would they really start diversifying? There is so much dependence on China right now that if there is another pandemic, let's say, that starts in China, then can they sustain the repeat of the supply chain issues that most companies have had here at the start of the pandemic? So if they try to solve for that answer, then it hits the return on equity straight up, because they need to build warehouses and equities, etc., onshoring, and the inventories, etc., onshore, and it all eats into the returns. So that's an interesting question mark. I don't know the answer, but it's something to keep an eye on and understand which companies, and people will react differently. Some companies would want to have that rainy day bucket with them, and some companies would be like, okay, let's punt it. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time we all are in.
Yep. Thanks for enlightening a lot of right set of questions in our minds as well. Thinking about IBM going out of forces from Office by 2025, Google planning to remotely make their workers from 50% to the tone of their workforce. I think commercial real estate and REITs quite will have a hit. Yeah, as you rightly mentioned, it's a right question. We don't know what will happen, but it's quite a thing to focus on. So thanks really for putting those right questions in our minds. And looking at chat, there is one question for Pratyush ji. So hi Pratyush ji, I can see you are there. So there's a question. Do you think if the drone delivery idea could change the whole carbon emission parts? It's quite a great question. So thought of pointing it to you.
No, it's a really good question, but no, I don't think so. That is a solution. So it's a good solution from convenience point of view. You could have loads of drones flying in the air, but from carbon emission point of view, I mean, here you are just sending one package by one drone. And here we are trying to increase the vehicle utilization and trying to send as many as packages as together. So from that point of view, it becomes inefficient. What will become efficient is if you can basically make use of something like solar panels or something to design those drones, then that will power them through renewable sources of energy. And that could be more sustainable compared to what they're testing right now.
Thanks a lot, Pratyush ji. And we see quite one suggestion coming up from Dr. Subhash Chandra Dadhich. So he's saying in the medical field, we are seeing an increasing role of artificial intelligence. So I suggest that young professionals should look at it. I think Devesh ji or Ravi ji could add more on this part if they are hearing me. I think this is quite a thing to talk about.
So I would like to add, so he's right. Basically, the AI and ML, I think, is helping a lot on this field. But one thing which is I'm looking forward, in fact, is that this quantum computing. I am not sure you guys have heard this thing, which is anyway is in talk already. And there are some of the pilots has been done by Google already. Some of the the research in the medicals, which could have taken like 10 years or so, was resolved into 10 hours. So that kind of performance and scale, the quantum computing will going to provide, right? And I think that will resolve a lot of, deep learning and other research methods in medical science. That's what I believe, especially, going to change the game. While there is a lot of, AI already is being used in the medical research or clinical trials and other things.
Thanks a lot, Devesh. It's really helpful.
I would like to
Ravi,
add,
if you want to add something. Yes.
Yeah, in this perspective with the healthcare and AI and ML, many companies, they are all, as Devesh said, they are already implementing even in India, in Pune, Siemens, our company where I work, they are also doing lots of work in that. So I don't know if there are some opportunities there. They may also look into the profile, and yeah, they are really doing good.
Thanks a lot, Ravi. I see no other question, and I think it was really good to have you all here and get our questions resolved and creating a right thought process to what to really look at in terms of job perspective to emerging markets to what's really coming up next. It was a really well shared ideas and right set of questions which have enlightened our mind. Thanks a lot for that. I think there is one more question which came from one person. I think it was really relevant, and it's for all of us belonging to this Dadhich community. And this question was, every community supports their members and help their youngsters to fill in career gaps. We see Jain Samaj has GTO, which is Jain International Trade Organization. There's very significant high substantial number which they are currently, and how they are really supporting their kids and their people who are just straight out of colleges, or their people who are there in businesses. Even Maheshri Samaj has that, but I'm not sure why Dadi Samaj doesn't. There is a need of looking at this thing right at this point of time. I think there is a need for this, and this set of question I want to point it out to Devesh ji. So this is quite created 3 months back, a well thought through idea. So I want to give it to him, and we all need a support from each and every one of us who's joining us here today, and also who's not joining us today. I think collectively we can do, otherwise it will again be just a talk and not reaching to the end goal. So that's something I wanted to mention, and write it to you, Devesh ji, now. Thanks.
You have asked me, or you have asked Devesh Dadhich from Sweden?
I think to both of you, actually, yeah, you both are quite senior and have come up with quite experience. I think this is the right set of question which has come from youngsters, so I think you can answer it well.
It's surely for you, not for me.
First of all, thanks to all the panelists, Devesh ji, Arun ji, Pratyush ji, Ravi ji. I just wanted to answer this thing. इन्होंने ये बताया कि ददीच परिवार वगैरह ये लोग सपोर्ट नहीं करते हैं. If you see, I remember John F. Kennedy saying, उनका कभी in my school days I was listening to him, तो his speech में, you don't ask what America does for you. You let me know what you have done for America. That should be the thing. अपन उनसे मांगे, अपन ये पहले देखें अपन ने क्या किए हैं करके. That is it. ये जो प्रयास है, this is my 40 or 45 days का. This proves, you see the panelist के. If I have to look into the per hour cost of Arun ji or Devesh ji, possibly DITF will have to take a loan of 3 years to pay that EMI. तो आप ये देखिए कि इन लोगों ने अपने ऋषि जी का जो उन्होंने जो दान दिया था, इन्होंने देखिए तन मन धन बोला जाते हैं. There are 3 ways of giving it. This is that man which they have given. बाकी सब it will be there करके आप प्रयास करके तो देखिए. किसी ने कहा था हिम्मत तो करो, आप आकाश में पत्थर तो फेंको, कौन बोलता है कि उसको नहीं तोड़ सकते हो. It is there, I agree. There are so many things. उनका वो broader है, अपना ददीच परिवार छोटा है. It cannot be that we cannot compare to what G2 had done, but DITF भी अपने हिसाब से whatever we are trying to do, whatever I can manage to do, I am doing it. We are planning to do it. कितने लोग young इसमें से join किए हैं. You see the persons who have joined on this panelist. I have not known. Possibly, if we were to cross the road, they will not recognize me. तो क्या था उन्होंने आया था. अपन ने जो प्रयास तो किया ना बॉस. मैंने एक उनको लिखा था कि how are you? He replied. अपन ये सोचते हैं कि कोई मदद नहीं करेगा. आप प्रयास तो करिए बॉस. आपको ये तो करना ही होगा. You will have to अपनी पात्रता निकालनी होगी. Then only it will be there. Yes, देर से हुआ है. I agree. उनके लेवल पे अपने को पहुंचने को टाइम लगेगा. शुरुआत की है. We have started a journey. अकेला निकला था. अरुण जी साथ हो गए, देवेश जी साथ हो गए, मेरे युवा प्रत्युष चाल, रवि जी आ गए. कारवां यूं बढ़ता रहेगा. Give us some time. We will try to do with the support of everybody. Will let us see. मैंने एक मुहिम चालू की है. देखते हैं. With support of everybody, we will try to satisfy everybody. कोशिश करते हैं. That's all, boss.
Thanks a lot, Devesh ji. Anyone else want to add something on this?
Yeah, no, I'll just add. Devesh uncle ने बहुत सही कहा कि just ask, right? I mean, it just reminded me of a negotiation class that I did like many years ago. And the assignment for that negotiation class was you have to collect 5 no's. No, as in koi mana kar de. But you have to ask, and you have to ask things that in your heart you think it's inappropriate to ask.
Yep.
Or it's or you yourself are blocking that, oh, iska to answer no hi milne wala hai. And and we were surprised actually. It was so hard to get no many times, and as part of that exercise, I still remember uh, I was taking a flight, and then when I was checking in, तो मैंने बोला कि can you upgrade me to business? This was a while ago, and then she checked in and she was like, yeah, okay, I'll do. And you just have to ask. I mean, obviously this was luck, but or she could have just said no or whatever, but she just, or you go to a bar, you ask for a, free drink. Again, this was all part of the assignment to get no. Not that I was looking for a free upgrade or that I was looking for a free drink. It was just, okay, hey, can you give me a free drink? And I was surprised the bartender would give you a free drink, or they would. There are many people who help you out. So the Devesh uncle ne bola, just you gotta ask, and people will be there, and it works actually. It works so very well in real life. Two things. I mean, I know a lot of younger people on this. On this webinar. I mean, two things. One is asking, as Devesh uncle you just mentioned, and then second is just being there. Just be present. It helps. And this is, I think, it's a broad, broad comment, but just to be there and actively contributing to whatever you're doing, it helps a lot. These are baby steps that that help in achieving the bigger goal.
Thanks a lot, Arunji.
Sure.
Yep. Anyone else would like to add anything before we put and give the mic over back to Kiranji for the word of thanks at the end? Okay, I'll take it as no. Over to you, Kiranji. Thanks a lot.
Right, we have a wonderful session going across for this wonderful webinar from all across the panelists. We thank you all for being a part of this panelist. And since we don't have any, we have got Nilesh Dimer to say something. Yes, Nilesh, can you please go ahead?
Oh yeah, hello everyone, and my name is
Nilesh.
Nilesh, and I would like to say something about Devesh ji. Since last in 1 month, we have been in touch with, for some business, basically for outsourcing, and he has been supporting a lot in terms of everything. And I'm so happy that someone, help our community if someone wish to raise his own business and everything. And he said that, Nilesh, don't worry, he has a very good contacts in abroad and everywhere. The only thing is that you have to take some initiative, to raise the business and all. So really, I would like to thank Devesh ji for supporting me since last, many days. So it's a very great initiative taken by sir. So I really thanks on behalf of everyone.
All right, thank you so much, Nilesh. Now it's time that we are end of this session, and I would request Nehal to please kindly give the vote of thanks. Nehal, over to you. Yeah, please.
I deem it as a great opportunity to propose vote of thanks. Wow, what a wonderful and insightful session this has been. I was literally looking forward to this one. And firstly, I'd go by saying thank you, Devesh ji. Thank you, Devesh uncle, for giving us this platform and this opportunity where we could come on board and speak. To see, like in normal times also, we couldn't connect. But you made it possible for us in these unprecedented times to connect from different parts of the world. And we had such wonderful panelists from Arun ji to Ravi ji, everybody explaining us little minute details from their backgrounds. And it was so insightful for people like us. We can understand new things. And I was literally looking forward so that I could understand new things and look forward. And thank you, Devesh ji, for giving us this platform. I can't thank you enough for this one. And thank you, everybody on this panel. Thank you, Kiranji and Piyush, for wonderfully co-hosting and managing this session. I'm hoping and looking forward for another session. And till then, take care, everyone, and stay safe.
ठीक है, all the best.
All right, this was the end of the webinar, but again, a very important information, guys. We have got an upcoming webinar on the 4th of October, which is related to homeopathy, and we'll share the details soon to all the participants who have participated today. And also the participants who could not get their answers, you can definitely mail us on the email ID ditf@gmail.com. So definitely we'll get back to you with the answers of your questions by asking our panelists. Because of the shortage of the time, even our panelists has some of their personal works to be completed, and they have removed their precious time for this wonderful webinar. Once again, I'm really thankful for all the panelists across the world who have participated and made this webinar a grand success. Thank you so much. And it was all the people out here who has made this webinar a success. Thank you all for participating with us. And we can sign off. This is your host and host, Kiran, signing off. Thank you so much with all the people out here.